Warning. Tongue and Geek contains heavy spoilers. If you haven't read, watched, or played the content being reviewed this episode, know that we will definitely spoil major plot points. Also, this show isn't for kids. We use words like and and it would take too much time and effort to edit them all out. Please don't tell our moms.
Isaac, do you do the worm?
I do the worm.
What do you know about the worm?
It wiggles. And it makes...
Oh, it wiggles.
It makes white people think they can dance.
Okay. You know what else it does?
What does it do?
It grows to insanely large sizes and eats people from underground. That's what the worm does.
I might have been doing this wrong this entire time.
Yes, you haven't become a subterranean predator.
Interesting.
To properly do the worm.
I've got more work to do.
Yes, you do. And I don't know how long we can keep this lame bit going. So, yes, we're talking about the 1990 horror comedy Tremors, directed by Ron Underwood, written by... I have their names right here, and I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't because I'm the background guy. Wow. S.S. Wilson, duh. And Brett Maddock. Those are the three brainchildren behind the 1990 cult classic film Tremors, which this is, if it's not obvious, this is one of my picks because Isaac is woefully undereducated on the horror genre, and I am slowly brainwashing him to become more of a fan. For those not in the know, it stars Kevin Bacon.
Bacon!
Ward, yes, Bacon. Fred Ward. And as the fan favorite character Burt Gummer, we have Michael Gross from the fucking sitcom with Michael J. Fox. Not Growing Pains. God damn it! Son of a bitch. Anyway, he was in a very popular sitcom in the 80s with Michael J. Fox.
For some reason, you said Michael J. Fox, and my brain interpreted that as Metal Gear Solid, and I'm like, what?
That I do not even want to know.
I don't know why my brain processed
what the hell
where it went there.
I am going to look up this fucking sitcom because I used to watch it all the time.
Okay.
And it's like every time like I want to take charge of the pod with an introduction or something, every detail that I've known all of my life about fucking pop culture leaves my head as soon as I want to speak it into the microphone.
It's hard. That's why I take notes.
It's ridiculous. And I guess, the whole insanity thing comes into play here because, insanity's repeating the same thing, hoping for a different outcome. And I'm like, I don't need notes.
Yeah.
I know this
Yeah.
And I never take them.
How about that?
Yeah.
If only someone had warned you about that.
It's my vibe. I go with the flow. I'm so pent up most of the time that I don't want to feel like this is work. Family ties. Okay.
All right. So welcome to our
Michael
Family
Gross
Ties.
starred in Family Ties.
Welcome to our Family Ties review.
Anyway, for those not in the know, Tremors is about this little tiny town in Arizona, fictional town called Perfection, that is suddenly besieged by giant man-eating worms. And it's just as glorious as it sounds. It wasn't a hit when it came out in theaters in 1990, but like so many great horror films, it found an audience on video and really, really took off. It also found a huge audience when they played on cable. Because I think that's how a lot of people our age, or I should say my age, because I'm a little older, saw it was on cable because they played it all the time. And it became such a success that it has spawned, there are 7 movies, so that's 6 sequels, and a TV series, and another TV series that filmed a pilot with Kevin Bacon a few years ago that they never aired. So there's a whole hour or hour and a half piece of new Tremors content that nobody has ever seen. And it pisses me off.
Aww.
Yes.
Maybe they realized they milked this thing dry.
Hey. Out of 7 movies, like 5.5 of them are good.
Okay.
Maybe 4.5.
Well, that's better than Star Wars.
You piece of shit. Anyway, Isaac.
Yeah.
We're talking about a horror movie.
Yeah.
You are such a noob to the genre. Or I should say, a noob to staples of the genre. That every time I convince you to watch something, it's like seeing it through a whole new set of eyes. I can't count how many times I've seen Tremors in my life, but when I played it for you the other day, it was like I was watching it in a different light, and like I got that that nervousness in my chest, like, oh God, what if he hates it? What if he just wants to make fun of this movie I love so much?
You get that with a lot of films you want to show me.
I do, because I hate your opinions half the time. But I will give the floor to you to tell our beautiful audience of about 5 to 6 people what you thought of Tremors.
I liked it. It was fun.
He liked it. He thought it was fun. Pod over.
Yeah.
Go see Tremors. Watch Tremors 1 through 7 if you're curious.
Yeah, that's going to do it.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like us on YouTube or rate us on whatever platform you're listening on. No, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of stuff that this movie does that sort of breaks the mold of the horror genre that I thought was interesting. And out of all the subgenres of horror comedy is undoubtedly my favorite, because I love it when we just acknowledge how ridiculous these concepts are and just play them out to their extremes.
Okay, so I want you to hit on the points that you picked up on that you like, and to see how many of them that I'm sitting on that I don't even have to bring up.
Okay, here's one. I like that almost all of this action in this film takes place during the day.
That was one of my
at night, because so much horror relies on darkness and creatures being unseen, things lurking in the night. And this one relies on the creatures being unseen, but rather than it being set at nighttime, it's during the day. They're just underground at all times. So instead of something else lurking in the shadows, oh, we don't know what it is, it's like, we know exactly what it is. It's a big-ass worm under the dirt that, like, moves around like Bugs Bunny whenever he's coming through. But, like, you don't know exactly when or where it's going to pop up because, it's underground. And I thought that was cool.
Yes, the daylight horror is something a lot of horror fans love to talk about when it happens because it's so rare. And Tremors is one of the prime examples of it, because there's one scene in the entire movie that takes place at night, one horror scene, I should say. And yeah, the rest of it is pure, stark, desert sun. I think the movie really utilizes its setting well with these, these vast, wide open spaces with mountains in the background. And although the film is rather irreverent and funny, I think it does manage to generate a sense of sort of tension and anticipation. I love the buildup of the movie, where we know something's underground, but the characters don't know yet. It's the whole Hitchcock bomb under the table thing.
Yeah.
And I love the slow realization the characters have that something's killing people around town. It's not a person. It could be an animal. Where is it? We don't see it. Oh my God, they're underground. Oh my God, they're huge. Like it's the slow leveling up of the first act of the movie of realizing what's going on that I really love.
Yeah, that's because at first they find out, oh, it's these big ass snake looking things that after one of them like grabs onto one of their trucks and gets like ripped out of the ground, they're like, oh shit, this thing's huge. But then they find out like, oh no, that was just its tongue. They literally pull like a SpongeBob, and they're like, that was just the worm's tongue.
I wonder if that episode was inspired by Tremors.
I kind of feel like it had to be, because that's all I was thinking about whenever they revealed that it was just the tongue on this giant worm. Because the tongue it looks like a big snake-looking thing, and it's pretty dang big. It's like basically like the size of an anaconda, and you're like, damn, there's a bunch of these things out here? That's scary. And then you get to the actual reveal of the thing, it's like, oh no, this thing's like the size of a semi-truck, like trailer and all, just running around in the dirt, and you're like, fuck me. These things are
Yeah.
big, and there's more of them?
This is why showing you horror movies that you have no real reference for is so refreshing, because in my circles, everybody knows the Tremors are big giant worms. I just took for granted that you might not know that the tongue ones aren't the main thing. So I was wondering if you were surprised when the big one burst out of the ground for the first time.
I literally only knew that the creature in this could dig underground. I figured it was like a worm or a snake or something, but I didn't know exactly what it looked like. So this was all a surprise to me as we got to the point where this thing's big. And, oh Lord, he coming! This thing's big.
Yes, and I said that this one line is my favorite line in the whole movie when it happened. When Val and Earl, the two main characters, Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, fantastic characters. We'll get to the characters because I think the characters are mostly what makes this movie work. They're running away from it when they realize that, oh my God, it's not just these snake things, it's this big motherfucker. And there's like this reservoir that they jump across in the desert. The Graboid, that's what they're dubbed. That's what they're called throughout the entire franchise, by the way.
Graboids.
Smashes into the concrete, kills itself. And they're digging it out with the other main protagonist, played by Finn Carter, who's the love interest for Val. Rhonda. I found the ass end. And the camera just like pans down like the length of this 25-foot giant worm as he's like lifting up the ass. Mm-hmm. I found the ass end. Such a great line.
Yeah, let's talk about the characters real quick because they really capture like down-home rednecks pretty well in a way that's like both funny and endearing. Mm-hmm. Like these characters genuinely feel like a bunch of, out in the middle of nowhere hicks living their day-to-day lives, and that's funny. The way that they talk is funny, and the things that they do is funny and all, but it's never like insultingly so. Like there's this couple that's like the gun nut couple, and you'd think that like they'd just be killed off as like, oh, they're the gun nuts and they're crazy and everything, but they actually end up, saving the town at one point, and you're like, oh, all these characters, while being played for comedy and for laughs, are being treated with a modicum of respect in that they're human beings acting sensibly. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a perspective I didn't actually even think about really until this viewing, like my 80th viewing, about how it's dealing in these kind of tropes of, the Western kind of rednecky hicks. Mm-hmm. And although the movie has mildly kind of makes fun of them a little bit here and there, but not much, it respects the characters and really wants the audience to endear themselves to the characters, because this is kind of like an update of like 1950s monster movies. Mm-hmm. And one of the downfalls of so many of those old movies is that the characters are so rote. It's always like the scientist who and the love interest who falls for the rugged hero who's either like the military guy or just the regular guy pulled into the extraordinary situation. And it's, if you're a fan of the old 50s monster movies, it's a lot of usually wading through the human parts to get to the fun monster parts.
Yeah, there's a great bit, and I actually like mentioned this before it happened. Like, Rhonda's a seismologist. She studies, like, earthquakes and stuff. And I remember saying, like, oh, like, why is everybody treating her like she's a doctor and everything? She's a seismologist. Because whenever they find out about these worms, they're like, oh, what's going on? You're a scientist. What's the deal with these things? And I'm like, she doesn't know. Like, she does as much as you. This isn't her area of study. And she, like, tries to guess a little bit. She's like, maybe this is another species we have never seen before. But eventually, there is, like, a point where, like, they keep asking her questions. She's like, I'm not a zoologist or whatever. She doesn't use that exact phrasing, but she's like...
It's like during, like, the third act when they're all on the roof hiding and... What's it doing now? It's like, why do you keep asking me?
She's like, I don't know. I study earthquakes. These are giant worms.
Val and Earl, the movie does a great job of making them colorful right off the bat.
Just some good old boys.
Yep. They're sleeping out in the desert. They're on a job. And
I just love handiwork all about the town. Yeah. In this town of 14 people, it's got a population of 14.
They do everybody's handiwork. I love the shot in the beginning where Kevin Bacon wakes up Fred Ward, pretending there's a stampede. And like after they get done ribbing each other, they're just like getting their shit ready. They're patting down their pockets, rifling through their jackets and stuff for cigarettes and lighters, and they're like swapping things between each other's hands and lighting each other's cigarettes. It's such a good little moment of character building and tells you exactly like who these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the characters are so fun. Like, it's not often that monster movies like this you really love the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I revisit Tremors half for the fun monsters, half for the fun characters.
And I think what makes them work so good, aside from just how well they're written and acted, is, this is a very, very small town. This is a hamlet, a village with 14 people in it. And you get the sense that everybody knows each other and everybody's all up in each other's business in a way that you wouldn't have in other films. In other films, it would be like you have to establish all these dynamics and characters have to meet each other and they have to go through the whole process of like, I don't know if I can trust you or I don't know if I like you or whatever. But instead, it's like, Earl, come by and fix my sewage tank. Or like, Val, come move the garbage. Like, everybody knows each other already with the exception of like Rhonda. You already get these established dynamics. That's kind of one thing that I'm mad about, not just in film, but in fiction, is that we don't really get to see... We spend so much time looking or building relationship dynamics in film and whatnot, instead of just assuming that the audience can pick up on it, The audience is smart enough to pick up on an established relationship, and when you do an established relationship, you can explore new avenues of like how that relationship changes when scenarios show up. I think it's just fun to see like all of these people who clearly know each other. They've lived together for a long time in this very small community, and suddenly they all have to face this big threat to their livelihoods together.
Yeah, and it also helps, that like close-knit dynamic also kind of helps with the tension of the movie, because most of the victims that get knocked off in the first half of the movie are people that they know. Like, we haven't like seen them interact with these people, but the first person we see is just this old guy that they pass, because their whole Val and Earl's whole thing is they're sick of perfection. They're stuck doing these dead end jobs. They want to go to the big city, Bixby, which I've been through Bixby on a road trip, and the fact that they think it's like the big city is hilarious. So that's kind of like a layered joke there. Mm-hmm. As they're leaving town, they see this old man Jenkins. That's not his name, but that's kind of the trope.
Yeah, it's the crazy old coot who lives in town.
They just see him up on this tower, this power tower. They rock, paper, scissors on who's going to go up and get him because he's not responding. And lo and behold, he's dead. He died up there of dehydration. A farmer that they know gets picked off. The only person that gets picked off that they don't know are these road workers. Just the fact that like people that they've known are the ones getting picked off lends more like an intimate feel to the danger. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of times in movies like this, it's like random people that the movie introduces just to kill off.
Yeah, this film also has a surprisingly high survivor percentage rate, which I guess is just sort of like what happens in horror comedy. Is a lot of the town lives. There's not too many victims as far as the town itself.
It's not a big body count movie, yeah.
Yeah. The only main one that we really see in the town is the shopkeeper. What's his name? Walter, yeah. He gets taken out, and the rest of them make it.
Mm-hmm. For people who like love a high body count, and gore might be disappointed that so many people live, but it's nice. It's refreshing that it tells the story of like this little group of people band together and work together to overcome the threat.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but I really like how competent everyone is, because like yeah, they're freaked out, and yeah, they make some stupid mistakes, but they're like reasonable mistakes that you wouldn't expect someone to make in a high-stress situation like this. And for the most part, they spend a lot of the movie is them just figuring out how to deal with these things, adjusting to that. It's a lot of strategizing, like, how do you deal with something that moves under the ground and can take you under and is, like, slowly getting more and more aggressive in trying to grab people? There's a lot of planning and thinking things out that works in a horror movie, because I want to see more of that in horror. What frustrates me so much in horror as a genre is when people just go out and do stupid ass shit and get themselves killed. It's like, well, you had that coming.
Yes, there were a couple aspects of the movie I was predicting you would appreciate, and that was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I knew as soon as that amazing scene in the basement of Bert's place when the camera pans to the giant wall of guns. And then you would just be like, ah! Because every time I force you to watch a horror movie, you're like, this could all be solved with a gun. If everybody just had guns.
Yes.
And I'm like, Isaac, I know we live in America, but not everybody is packing. And we couldn't have scary stories if everybody just had a gun.
And this film does a great job of showing how the guns are effective against these things. They kill one of them with guns, with a whole lot of guns, a whole lot of shooting.
Such a funny, awesome
They just
scene.
keep grabbing guns off the wall and firing them into this big-ass worm as it flails around bleeding to death until they finally grab a fucking elephant rifle and blow its brains out. And it's great. And it's like, yes, okay, finally, guns being used to deal with the monster. What's great, I think, is that not just the humans, but the monsters themselves sort of adapt. Like, each time that the humans figure out some way to avoid the monsters or to hurt the monsters will find a way and adapt back. Like, all of the humans get up on top of the buildings where the monsters can't reach them. Well, what do the monsters do? They start digging under the foundation of the buildings and start, like, making the buildings sink into the ground. One of them gets shot up by the Gunner family, or what are they called? The Gummers?
Gummer.
Yeah.
Yes. Gummer.
They should have been called the Gunners. Obvious pun.
A little too obvious.
But one of them gets shot up by that, and like they stay under the ground until the very last moment now. They don't reveal themselves as much so that they can't get shot through the dirt. There's a lot of good, okay, everybody's trying to figure out how to do things, both between our heroes and the monsters, in a way that makes it feel like I can genuinely get invested in this suspense, because it's not idiots running out to their deaths, and it's not monsters that are just impossibly overpowered.
And another great thing about the script is how adaptable the graboids are. They're just really fleshed out as monsters. We don't get backstory. We don't need backstory. What Rhonda says early on about them being, an old undiscovered species is true. We get a bit more of that in the sequels. I like how convincing they are as animals without the movie over expositing. They don't have eyes. They don't have noses. So they sense through vibration. Well, how do these things move through the ground so fast? Well, they have these spines that they can move independently that helps them rocket through the dirt. I like the vulnerability of them not being able to get through solid rock.
Yeah.
It's just, you can tell that they really thought out, like, okay, we want to make this movie about these giant monsters that live underground. We're set it in the desert. Okay, how is that logically going to play out? And how are we going to pan that out in a way that's entertaining, but also, suspension of disbelief, but believable at the same time. As silly as big worms that eat people that have beaks that are jaws and these snake tongues that come out, as unbelievable as that is, like, they're believable as animals in and of themselves, which I really like. And the effects, I think, are just about perfect and hold up incredibly well.
It's a lot of fun. The effects, like I said earlier, when they're digging through the ground, it literally looks like an old school Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's digging through the dirt. It just like mounds up in a big hill as he goes by. I laughed out loud the first time I saw one start moving through, but they are basically like land sharks.
You said that, because that was the working title of the screenplay. They were just called
land sharks.
Yeah, the writers wanted to make the movie called Land Sharks, and it kind of transformed into Tremors.
I mean, that's basically what they are. Like, they have the exact same sort of deal as Jaws, where they stay beneath the surface, waiting until the right moment to strike. You don't know when or where they're going to pop up. The effects, a lot of the time... What rating is this one? Is this one just a PG-13?
Yep, just a PG-13.
I figured as much, because there's not much gore. A lot of the deaths that we see is just people getting sucked under the ground. We don't really see them, like, eviscerated or anything, or even that much blood. So, like...
A lot of monster goo, though. A lot of monster
goo. But, like...
Which, I mean, I love monster goo. So give me all the monster goo.
But, yeah, I think they do a great job of establishing... using the practical effects to show how these things move, how they hunt. Whenever they come out, they do look... not necessarily scary, almost silly in a way, but like a fun...
They're tubby. They're tubby. They're big old tubby
big old
worms.
chonkers. They're not just long, they're so fat. they're just these big... And that kind of works to their benefit, because in the whole scene when they're getting, like, shot at with the guns, it's like, yeah, of course this is going to take this many bullets, because these things have thick hides. I mean, this thing's basically one big-ass muscle just moving through the dirt. Yeah, like you said, they feel like a creature that could actually possibly exist. Weird as hell, but actually possibly exist somewhere.
Which is another thing that I remember you've talked about monster movies, is like, I would like monsters that just, like, their whole motivation isn't just, like, killing and eating. Although, like, the graboids, their motivation is killing and eating.
Well, not even just killing and eating, but so many monsters...
It's all animal behavior.
Yeah.
It's just... Yeah.
So many monsters in horror films is just the killing part. They'll kill someone, and then they'll go on to kill someone else without eating. And it's like, that's not how predators behave. Like, they eat... Like, if you saw a bunch of wolves eating a carcass, they're not gonna hunt you down. They're probably gonna growl at you and try and get you away from the carcass they're eating. Like, unless they don't have any food. So many monster movies is just, I'm gonna kill this thing, now I'm gonna kill this thing, now I'm gonna kill... And it's like, no! They eat! They kill to eat! And this movie establishes that. These big-ass worms that probably need like a gajillion calories a day are hunting people to eat them. That's totally acceptable.
And I love the detail that they wait. A lot of the movie is the characters running away to solid ground and height to get away from them. The reason the guy died up on the tower in the beginning is because the fucking things just wait there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they wait there for you to come down so they can feel your vibrations again and snatch you up. It's such a fun, like, man versus nature story. I love a good man versus nature story because the whole hubris of man, and no matter how smart they are and how many tools they have, you know, something they're not prepared for, something simple that's perfectly evolved to their environment can take them out. I love how the movie's basically just a struggle of willpower between these giant worms and the people.
Who's got the resolve? There's also, like, all of the monster deaths are good because there's 4 big monsters. First one we see die is the one that they're running away from. They manage to, like, get into a concrete reservoir. It rams into it and, like, kills itself because it was moving so fast. That's the first one. It's good. It establishes what these things are, how big these things are, and also their weakness, which is that they can't get through, like, solid rock or concrete or anything like that. And of course, like Tyler said earlier, we get the great bit where they're just looking over the thing and he's like, I found this ass end. Second one dies, I think that's the one that's gunned down by the gummers. Like, yep. That's a great scene. We've already talked about that. The third one dies when they take a bunch of, like, gunpowder that the gummers brought, make some fucking pop bombs, and lure the thing out of the dirt to try and eat it. It like, eats one of the bombs because it thinks it's a person, and it explodes. Another great death. And then the last one ties into the beginning of the film, where at the beginning we saw, you know, the two, Val and Earl, they're at the edge of a cliff, they're doing their morning work, and, like, Val tricks Earl into thinking, oh man, there's a stampede coming. We get to see Val trick this worm to stampede right off the cliff. So, like, each monster death is fun and unique and has to be addressed a different way because each time they take out one of these things, the others learn from it. They learn not to do whatever caused this one to die.
Yep, and it's really fun seeing how every victory the characters think that they achieve is undermined by the fucking worms who just learn, oh my god, we can finally get off these roofs to get through the pass and into town and get out of the valley with this giant cat, with a giant cat as in, you know, caterpillar machine earth mover, not a animal for those confused. With a giant trailer attached to it. It's so heavy they won't be able to knock us over. Lo and behold,
they dig a ditch.
The freaking worms dig a ditch in the trail up ahead because they're that smart, and the whole thing just collapses into the hole. And it's like, it's so fun to watch. It's just, it's no matter how many times I watch it, it's just such an entertaining movie about how the incidents just escalate and the dynamics keep changing until Val finally figures out how to use its weakness against the last one for ultimate victory. I love the shot of the freaking thing just falling down hundreds of feet onto the rocks and bursting just like a melon.
I don't know how much more I really have to say about this one. It's just
it's just it's a really fun, really well made, tightly written, well acted monster movie, and that's why it stood the test of time. Is because it just has all of the right ingredients mixed properly. Like Bert says about his pipe bombs, just a couple of household ingredients mixed in the proper proportions. I told you when we were watching it that Bert is the main character throughout the series.
Is he?
And he's the fan favorite. Yeah. He keeps getting better. They keep kind of upping his, gun nut thing, but he never becomes a parody.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as the series progresses, they kind of sort of address how that kind of character might be misconstrued. So they do some things to make it be like, oh, he's not that kind of guy.
Right.
He's just kind of, he's kind of like Ron Swanson. A more badass version of Ron Swanson, even though Ron Swanson is the ultimate badass. And
if libertarians were actually cool.
Yeah. And there's a surprising amount of continuity between the films, except for the fourth one. The fourth one's a prequel set in the Old West with Bert's ancestor as the main character.
Oh, that's funny.
The third one, the second one doesn't take place in Perfection. It takes place, I think, in Mexico or New Mexico. I can't remember which. Third one is called Back to Perfection. I don't think you'll mind spoilers because you're like, I like this movie, but I don't know if I want to watch all the rest. The graboids evolve. In the second one, the big mystery is the general plot is Earl is hired by this new character Grady, who's kind of like the young sort of mentee of the story, to hunt graboids down in New Mexico because some oil field has a problem with them. Bert gets down there too, and they're having a blast just blowing up all these graboids. They've been through this, they know what to do, but something is happening and they don't know what's happening. They stumble across one that is dying, and then later its insides look like they've been burst out of. What's going on? Lo and behold, they're evolving and multiplying into shriekers. These adorable bipedal versions.
They get legs?
They get legs. They're on the ground now, and they hunt like predators through infrared. And
that's like a completely different monster.
I know, but it's so fucking fun. It's like it's a direct-to-video sequel, which honestly, the quality is about as good as the first one. So I did not know it was a direct-to-video for the longest time, actually. I think the second one is just as good as the first one in how cleverly it sets up the characters, sets up the conflict, and the push and pull between the monsters and the people. Tremors 2 is fantastic, and the Shriekers are my favorite version of the monsters. They're so cool. They're like raptors, but with
I'm trying
tremor heads.
Hang on, I have to fucking look at this
look up Tremors 2 Shriekers.
I cannot picture these big ass worms with legs running around. Okay, so they're real stumpy now.
Yeah, they're stumpy. They got little
tadpole it's all tail. Mouth. It's all mouth. Like they had big mouths before, but now they're just all mouth.
Yes, they're amazing. I love them. I love the Shriekers. The third one introduces ass blasters, which is
oh my god,
which is a contentious creature among the fandom. They're kind of like Shriekers. They're bipedal, but they can glide by
glide. Oh my!
They can glide by. They have a buildup of gas in their behinds.
Oh my god, these things are ridiculous!
That they ignite and fart, allowing them to become airborne.
Oh, fuck me. These aren't even the same creatures anymore! It's like a big-ass turkey-looking thing now!
That's what's so fun about the franchise, is just seeing what the graboids are going to do next. And they kind of stagnate after the ass blasters. The fourth one is a prequel, so they don't really do anything new with the animals, except you see baby graboids, which are fucking adorable. 5, 6, and 7, they basically just redesigned them to look more menacing and intense. The fifth one's actually really good. The sixth one's decent. The seventh one's also decent. You watch them for the monsters and Bert, pretty much. So that's sort of the condensed version of...
I'm looking at these babies, and they're just smaller versions of the big ones.
Yeah. They're cute, though.
How? They're just big worms, Tyler. They're still just
They're
big
cute.
worms.
I like baby things of things. Baby monsters are cute.
It's still just a big fat worm.
Big fat worms are cute. What do you want from me?
They really aren't. It's like a fat maggot just coming at you. Cute's not the word I would use to describe these things.
Well, that's just my horror heart and your non-horror heart having a conflict right now. Can't forget about the series. Only lasted a season, but it was fun. It introduced a lot of like different monsters that aren't related to graboids because of mutation and chemicals and experiments and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay.
I guess we can get into our new segment.
Is it horny?
Is it horny?
I'll let you take the lead on this one.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I think Tremors is a little horny because if you look at them, the graboids look like big dicks. Do you not see what I'm talking about? They look like big old peanuts. And I realize they look like big penises.
They're just
in the third
worms, Tyler. They're just worms.
You can't tell me there's not something phallic about their fat pink body.
Don't look at
that come to a crown, a mushroom tip of a head.
They're not mushroom tips. They're big old spiky tipped. What kind of go see a doctor, Tyler? My God. What the fuck?
There's a reason I realize that they look like penises. In the third movie, there's a CGI shot of one coming up from the ground to kind of like look, even though they don't have eyes, but look at Bert.
Mm-hmm.
The thing looks just like a big fat dick. Oh. And I'm like, oh my God, they're penises.
Okay, so so they're penises. What's the
yes.
What's the I don't know, fucking analogy here? Are they fucking the earth? Like what's the
big dick energy, bro.
Oh my!
They are the personification of big dick energy.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
You don't see what I'm talking about at all.
No, this is just like any middle schooler looking at something vaguely penis shaped and being like, "That's a penis."
Oh, like I'm the first person on the internet to think something in a piece of media.
I'm sure you're not. It's just like I don't want to imagine the porn that would come from fucking Tremors.
I didn't ask you to imagine the porn. I just said they kind of look like a dick.
Oh,
that's all. And if you want to get away from the graboids look like penises thing, Val and Earl kind of have a bit of a rapport.
There's a bit of sexual tension there.
Yeah, if you look for it.
In that way that a lot of films have between two male characters, and it's like, no homo, bro. No homo,
yeah,
as we gently touch each other and caress each other's cheeks. No homo as we live and die sleeping next to each other. No homo as we share a blanket and stare at the stars together. As we plan to move town together and start a new life together. No homo, bro.
Kind of ruins that. You could say that Rhonda comes in and messes up the whole self-discovery Brokeback Mountain thing they had.
My favorite subgenre in film is a gay and a bisexual man are in a healthy, happy relationship until a woman comes by and seduces the bisexual. You see it in so many things. Biggest example I can think of top of my head is Road to El Dorado. It's like, it's never explicit, but like, it's so often you have these two male characters that are like, they're life partners. They spend all their time together. They're inseparable, clearly in love. And then a woman comes in and ruins it. And it's just like, well, okay, we're doing this again.
Well, that begs the question of,
that doesn't really happen here, though, because Earl never, like, gets jealous of Rhonda. Earl's always...
No,
like,
he kind of, like...
He pushes for it.
He kind of, sidelines, kind of like, I approve of this.
Earl's a power cuck.
Yeah. So, with your little, your bisexual straight man thing, we're asserting that Val is the bisexual of the duo.
So, yeah.
Okay. anything to back that up, or just because he's the one who gets the love interest in the end?
Yeah, it's just the whole angle of, he's in love with a man and then falls in love with a woman.
Okay. This begs the question of, can a fleshed out male-male relationship, platonic relationship, be portrayed in media without everybody thinking it's gay? That's the question.
Honestly, that is a great question, because I'm honestly of a conflict in this, because obviously we want more good gay representation in media in general. We want to see positive representations of LGBTQ groups. So I'm all for seeing, more gay men in film and in all fiction. But you're right, there is this sort of trend for everyone to look at any platonic male-male relationship and immediately be like, they're gay. It can be kind of frustrating at times, because
it can kind of slip into fetishization.
It does. It gets a little weirdly fetishized, and also I think it just kind of steals away. This is not just for this problem in particular, but this is just a problem we have culturally, is that we have romanticized romance. We have this idea that romantic love is the only love that matters. It's supposed to fulfill all of your life's desires and needs. Romantic love is the ultimate thing that you should strive for, and if you do not have it in life, you are a failure, and you are undoubtedly unhappy. That's what frustrates me with a lot of media, is that we never break away from that. So I would love to see more that just explore the platonic relationships between people and not turn it into something romantic. I know there's a lot of push for that, between, male characters and female characters, but even that seems a little heteronormative. It's well, I'm glad we're pushing against the assumption that the man and the woman should be together, but the fact that we're already assuming that that's the only kind of platonic relationship that we should be advocating for, we should be advocating for more platonic relationships. Let's show what platonic love looks like in all of its forms.
Yeah, I agree. Let's have more of all of it. More gay in media. More platonic
gay,
relationships,
more platonic
in media.
Love, more poly. Just give me more. I guess spoilers for next month, but we're gonna do a lot of LGBTQ stuff for June. Yeah,
which I'm nervous about, because
it's okay.
I am the the straight white one of the duo.
White man.
So
I know the road looks rough ahead.
Poor me, the straight white man, afraid to talk about serious issues online.
It's fine. We've got a bisexual white guy and a bisexual woman that are going to be helping you out through this. So that's a lot of white bi, which is its own thing when you get into the intersections of race and sexuality. Whatever.
We won't get there in this Tremors review.
Yeah, we've gone wildly off topic. Anyway, is it horny? I guess Tyler thinks it is. I think
it's on the Richter scale of horniness. I think it's a solid 4.5 out of 10. Not the most horny, but not insignificantly horny.
Val's pretty horny for Rhonda, and Val has some pictures of some women up in his truck that he keeps up in the vanity mirror.
Tammy Lynn Baxter, his ex-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm, but I don't know, it's about standard horny, I guess. It's about as horny as any film that has any romance in it would be. If you're not looking at the gigantic worm monsters with their multi-tongued giant beak faces as penises, then yeah, I don't think it's any hornier than anything else.
Ah, man, I was really hoping you'd be more receptive to my grab bits look like penises thing.
I had a reaction to it.
Not the reaction I was aiming for.
It might be the hardest I've laughed on this podcast.
Wow, that's saying something. That's good.
Oh, boy.
Because for a second there was kind of dead silence. I don't know if there was another interruption or if you were just laughing so hard that you weren't making any noise.
I think that might just be Discord. I think once I hit a certain octave or something, it just
honestly,
me out.
Yes, I think that's what it is. Because I have noticed that every time you do the intro and you do your Isaac, when you hit that you go up an octave and it cuts out every single time.
We need to switch our recording platform or not recording, but our audio communication. Something that's not going to cut out all of the stuff.
Because Isaac's loud and squeaky.
I guess that wraps up. Is it horny? So,
ta-da! I think this new segment is a success.
I love it. I love Is It
I'm
Horny?
enjoying it.
You want to do some review?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Rotten Tomatoes, 86% critic, 75% audience. So people like it. Although surprisingly, less audience like it than the critic score, which is odd. I was expecting a higher audience score and a lower critic.
Well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't, it's not like the all-knowing metric.
It's not real.
It's not real. It is not real. Unless I agree with it.
And then it is. I just got a few here. Timothy B says, I don't hate it, but it didn't have enough guns. 3 out of 5 stars. They've got to be trolling, right? Like, they've got to be trolling.
It's got to be an obvious troll.
that whole scene was so good with all the guns.
There was little guns and there was big guns and they went so yes, there was a lot of guns.
This next review is either going to be dismissed automatically or run this pod to double its current length. And it's all going to depend on how you respond to it.
Let's do it.
This is from C's T. C's T says Tremors is greater than Jaws and 80s Dune. 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I mean, I'm not mad. I think it's really funny that they say it's better than 80s Dune because Dune just has big worms in it.
Yeah.
It's not a story about monster worms. It just has monster worms in it. So that's really funny.
But Tyler, they said Tremors is better than Jaws, and they gave Tremors a 3.5 out of 5. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, them thinking it's better than Jaws, I can accept because I love both movies, and I think both are perfect movies in their own right. The 3.5 out of 5 is what's throwing me off because they're rating Tremors at 3.5 out of 5, which is a good rating, but not like a very high rating. So what is the rating for Jaws? That is what's, twisting my nips a little bit. Is that they would dare rate Jaws below a 3.5.
A backhanded insult to Jaws.
Fucking trash. Trash. That's what you are, person who I don't know what your life is like, so I'm sorry for calling you trash.
I was just about to say.
I'm gonna reel that back. And say
just listened back to our toxic fan episode. Let's backpedal a bit.
I did backpedal. I reeled it in and said, "You're not trash. Your opinion is trash." There's a difference.
It's different. You're not bad. You're just stupid.
Yes, and that's forgivable.
Jamal S says, "Tremors. If you move, the monster can feel you. Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
If you move, the dinosaurs can see you. A Quiet Place. If you move, the aliens can hear you. Bird Box. If you look, the aliens can kill you. 5 out of 5 stars."
I didn't know where that was going. I'm like, oh, is this going to be one of the snarky things? Just like, oh, this thing has a thematic similarity to this thing, so it's shitty.
I think Jamal just likes this formula of...
yeah, it's an effective formula for thrilling stories.
If you use one of your senses and or bodily functions, a monster kills you.
Which, they mentioned Jurassic Park, which, a little tidbit that I forgot to mention, the pogo stick girl, Mindy, is Lex in Jurassic Park. So, yes,
I didn't.
She's not a stranger to monsters trying to eat her in the 90s.
Last one I've got. This is from Chris K. It's not easy to make solid ground act like water, but they managed to do a great job of creating land sharks. It's also good to see a suspense movie that occurs mostly in sunlight. Usually darkness is used to hide things or water, but in this, dirt. There is a lot of fun strategizing on both sides of this. 3 out of 5 stars. And that's all the stuff we kind of hit on.
Yeah, yep. Another fun detail that I liked that I forgot to mention was I love the POV shots, just them moving through the dirt.
Yeah.
That's cool. Not much to say, but that's cool.
They don't overuse it.
POV.
Yeah, they don't overuse it to the point of like being obnoxious, but the few times it shows up, it's a pretty cool effect. Yeah, I don't think I can't think of a nerd ethics question to put to this one.
Nerd ethics. Okay,
I'm kind of just trying to stretch it out because we're only at like an hour, and I think 5 minutes of that was our intro, like flubbing it a couple of times.
I got one.
Okay.
It might not be as ethicsy to you because of the circumstances of the story, but because it's life or death. But how ethical is it that these characters, to their knowledge, cause the extinction of a unprecedented species on Earth?
Okay. I like this question because this does apply to a lot of different films and fiction of, there is this thing that is a threat to us as human beings, and we want to make sure that we're not being killed by it anymore. But in order to do so, we are exterminating it from the face of the Earth. That's a good question because there's a lot of real world analogs I see to that. What I think of off the top of my head is my favorite animal is the tiger. I fucking love tigers. They're these awesome, majestic, beautiful creatures that are also some of the most dangerous and deadly predators on the face of the earth. While I definitely don't advocate for any sort of poaching or anything, I also can see like people who live in areas with tigers not wanting to live in an area with tigers and, killing them in order to protect themselves and their livestock and their children and such. So that's a big ethical question. And it kind of ties into bigger questions about, population growth and how far humanity should spread across the globe, how much of, the Earth we should take up and how many of us there should be. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one, Tyler. That brings up a lot of shit.
You're welcome, and that just kind of came to me on the fly.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, fuck. And I'm almost trepidatious to say anything here because I certainly don't want to advocate for genocide of any sort. But
yeah, of course. I mean, that's a given. But with the internet,
right,
people can take the most innocuous of statements and make it seem like you want to start World War III.
Or just wipe out an entire species.
Yeah, there's the whole greater good thing versus the whole practical in the moment thing. Like, these people are cut off in the movie. Every escape attempt is thwarted. They're in imminent danger. They can't communicate outside because their communication is also fucked. So they don't have a choice, really, but to kill the graboids. And nothing in the movie strictly implies that these are the only ones, but it also doesn't imply that there's more.
Right.
So that's kind of, not that the movie needed to, but like that's kind of like a conversation that never happens. Like, what are we doing to these things that, isn't on the fossil record? And
there's not some scientist character who's like, you can't kill them. They're like an unknown species. You can't wipe them out.
Not even the scientist character. She's excited about them at first. She's like, this is the biggest zoological discovery of the century. Like, what the hell are these things?
And then she's like, fuck them. I'm a seismologist. Kill these bastards.
I love the rock. I don't love the meat. So she's all aboard taking them out too because she doesn't want to become graboid chow.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's really interesting. Of course, in the sequels, we get into people studying them and wanting to know more about them, and in the last one, hunting them for sport because, of course, breeding them and hunting them for sport.
This question I
kind of don't know where to go with it either.
It's a big question. Surprisingly,
I kind of just dropped a bomb on it.
You really did because what it brings up is the question. It brings up two, I think, core questions, and it's how much do ethics apply outside the realm of humanity, and also how much is humanity, responsible for the care of the planet? Because with the first one, it's like, what ethics are, what morals are as we understand them, they're creations of society. They are things that we as a species have created, rules we've established in order to live in a way that we see as more, satisfying and thriving and good for our species than pure and total anarchy. ethics aren't like an inherent nature to us. We may have empathy for one another inherently, but the actual rules of good and bad behavior don't exist internally within us. We have to establish those and teach those. So when you start to apply those things to creatures outside of humanity, then you get a very one-sided relationship in which it becomes, okay, if we're trying to behave morally, but they aren't, do we have the moral obligation to continue behaving morally? Because, the worms don't give a fuck about morals. They're just trying to eat. The graboids are just trying to eat. They don't care about ethics. And when you have one force trying to behave ethically and limiting its actions based on those ethics, and another force that does not give a fuck about ethics, what usually ends up happening is that latter force just runs over the other. That's what happens throughout, all of human history when you have, these terrible, terrible groups who say, fuck human rights. They just run over the other side that's we're still good people who are trying to behave well and, not be monstrous killers, and this other group said, fuck that.
Man, yeah, this is
it's a much
can of worms.
Big... You bastard. You opened up a much bigger can of worms than I was expecting. There was some big-ass graboid worms in this can. I was looking at it, and I thought it was just, that's a pretty big worm. And then I opened it up, and there was a bigger worm. It was just the tongue I was looking at first.
It's also interesting in context of this movie itself, because so many other creature features and monster movies, the conflict starts because, man meddling with science or man meddling with nature or infringing upon something they shouldn't infringe upon. Mm-hmm. There's really none of that here. The graboids just show up.
Yeah, they're not the result of a human experiment or something gone wrong. They're just a species we never encountered before suddenly appearing, and now we have these two forces in conflict. It's very much sort of the primordial... We as humans are suddenly being hunted by something we don't know or understand, and we have to find a way to survive. And in stories like that, ethics kind of get thrown out the window because it's there's no room for them. We can't think about what's the right thing to do. We have to just sort of focus on living.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. It's you kind of just get tongue-tied, and roadblocked because you're wow, there's no... yeah. There's no answer.
And the bigger question here is how much are we as humans supposed to be caretakers for the planet? And that's a whole thing, because on the one hand, climate change is real, it's happening, and it's gonna fuck us up, and we're the ones contributing to it. So on that front, yes, absolutely, we need to be responsible with what we're doing and try and step back from where we are, even if that ledge has perhaps been driven off of a long time ago. But on the other hand, there is this sort of egotistical element to this idea that, we are responsible for the planet, that, we are supposed to take care of everything on it. We're supposed to make sure that every species lives. We're supposed to make sure that, everything is preserved and taken care of. There's this, it's almost this godlike status that we've attributed to humanity, where it's we are meant to make sure that the Earth thrives.
Is that the case, though? Because nobody gives a shit.
No!
At least not enough people give a shit.
Not enough people give a shit. I think certainly it's better to have that latter mentality of I'm an egotistical, ecological person who wants to take care of the planet, even if it's just to get up my own asshole, than it is to have the idea of I don't give a fuck about the planet. I'm gonna go burn a tire outside my house and choke a dolphin with a fucking tire iron. I think it's much better to be the former than the latter.
That's an interesting bit of psychology that I can't comprehend, because you hit on a type of person just there with the I'm gonna burn a tire and choke a dolphin. A lot of that sort of mentality is a gut reaction to people who advocate for the environment, there's this
visceral
kind of hatred of environmentalist and environmentalist methodology. Yeah, we're people just get angry about it and take it personally. Oh, fucking tree huggers, fucking environmentalists. I'm gonna I'm going to put these big old mufflers on my truck and blow smoke out of it every time I hit the gas on the highway. And it's like, what causes that sort of reaction in those types of people?
I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a sociologist. I can't tell you the actual reason. I can only tell you my guess. And it would be the twofold elements of fear and guilt. Fear being that if these environmentalists are right, then holy fuck, we're doomed. And guilt in that, oh my god, I have been complicit in the elimination of so many species, almost certainly including our own in the near future.
Yeah.
So,
I think
like,
that's a lot of it, really.
I think that anti-environmentalism comes from a strong denial of, I cannot accept this fear and guilt into my heart, because if I do, I will panic and melt down.
Exactly. And it also comes with the, I don't like people telling me what to do. You know, I don't like these uppity snobs.
That's just America for you, goddamn country freedom, some bitch.
Yeah, but I do think a lot of it is people just dead ass afraid to confront that feeling of, oh my god, am I kind of part of the problem?
Also, corporate greed. We can't forget corporate greed in this conversation.
Of course, of course. Just because we're talking about the more individual aspect of it doesn't mean we're not acknowledging the corporations just ass fucking the planet into a burnt out cinder.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course they're the biggest. James Cameron, come save us with Avatar 2. Avatar 2, please. Come on.
Please.
Make everybody wake up.
Please. Have the little blue cat people need to save the planet, please?
No, they're big blue cat people. They're like 12 feet tall.
Big blue cat people who stick their little tentacle heads into animals, which is also an allegory for fucking at one point in the film, so it makes it really complicated and gross. Please.
It's not gross. It's
beautiful. I stick my dick in a horse every time I read it. Are you kidding me? How else are we supposed to get centaurs?
See, you're conflating the Sahelu. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if the Sahelu's the connection that they make or the actual appendage. You're confusing that with the penis, which it's a different organ altogether. But, we'll get that when we eventually review Avatar, which I'm sure will happen at some point.
Maybe when the second one comes out, we'll review the first, like we did with Sonic.
Sonic the eco-terrorist?
Yeah, Sonic's an eco-terrorist, dude. Kinda is.
I'm an eco-terrorist.
He's not wrong.
I would join Sonic's eco-terrorism unit.
Absolutely. I'd love to be a freedom fighter. What's your Sonic fursona, Tyler?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This has been some weird tangents in this Tremors review.
Everybody. Tremors. I'd be a wombat, I guess.
I feel like I'd be a buffalo.
No, I want to be a buffalo.
Well, fuck you. You picked a wombat.
Buffaloes are my spirit animals. Just like a bunch of other different
17 spirit animals. Pick one.
No, do not box me in with the spirit animal binary. I could be as many fucking spirit animals
I'm a whole goddamn totem pole.
Exactly.
We've gone places in this one. We did horny. We did some surprising depth.
Got onto some LGBTQ plus issues.
This one's a wild ride.
This is why we deserve fame and fortune. Is because who would click on a Tremors review podcast and expect to get all of this other bullshit?
You don't know what you're in for when you click on an episode of Tongue and Geek.
If somebody wants to listen to a podcast about Tremors, they want to listen to people talk about Tremors. But instead, they get 50 minutes of people talking about Tremors and 20 minutes of people talking about nonsense that has nothing to do with the movie.
Tongue and Geek, we don't deliver on what we promise.
Until we get desperate and quite literally start putting our tongues in geeks. Consensually, of course. Yeah. We'll do it when we do our spoilers retrospective episode. We can do an Is It Horny for our own show.
For our own show, yes. I can spoil that for you right now. Yes.
Mostly because Isaac.
I'm not the one who looked at gigantic fucking worms and thought penis.
Hey, it only took me blossoming into a adult to realize that the graboids were penises. Yeah.
Oh, but you have any recommendations aside from like the rest of Tremors, I guess?
Oh boy. Gosh, I always forget about the recommendations now because we always go so off the rails. Honestly, I can't think of anything that pops in there right now. Tremors 2, at least the Tremors 2.
How about Jaws?
I mean, yeah, but that's like, people have seen Jaws. But then again, I'm older now, so there's an entire generation below me who probably hasn't seen Jaws.
There's a lot of people who haven't seen a lot of things from your time, old man. The future's now. We're making the best shit right now. Get with it, Grandpa.
Yeah, but like my whole thing is like, recommending Jaws off of Tremors just feels backwards. Like, I should be recommending Tremors off of Jaws. But sure, Jaws. Okay.
What other shark-themed or land-themed, land shark-themed stuff you got?
I know there's something, but it's just not coming to me right now, which is really annoying.
Shark in general. Take the land out of it.
I got a good one. Deep Rising from 1998? 97 or 98?
Something about that title.
It's a lot cornier. It's a lot cornier than Tremors. It's more like action thriller based, where it's like it's got criminals and tough guys, and they're on a cruise ship, and something attacked and killed everybody on the cruise ship. And what is it? It's a giant kraken thing that has tentacles, kind of like the grabby mouths and the graboids, but they're attached to a much, much bigger creature.
I like a good kraken. I like a good kraken.
I know you do. I know you like a good kraken that will. I was trying to connect the word kraken and tremor into something sexual, but I couldn't do it.
I mean, you could have just said, I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going. That's like this established joke when you bring up anything that has to do with tentacles. I lowballed you, buddy.
Clever than that.
I pulled the branch down for that nice low-hanging fruit. You said, oh, I can't reach the one at the top. Let's rate the damn thing and be done with it.
Give me a boost.
Please? Please, I want to make a sex joke, please? Please is not going anywhere anytime soon, by the way. It's my new favorite thing to do.
Yeah. So get used to it. Tremors. I'm not going to rate Tremors. It's amazing. Watch it.
2 out of 3 worm tongues.
Okay, because they have 3 worm tongues.
Exactly. There's method to my madness. I guess that's going to do it for us today. This is going to be a bit of a short one, but I think we hit on some good stuff.
That's fine.
Some weird, fun stuff. If you enjoyed this...
this is going to be one of the weirder episodes.
Those tend to be my favorite, though. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like us on YouTube or rate us on whatever platform you're listening on. Drop a comment, share us with your friends, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Tongue and Geek. That is at Tongue and Geek, all one word. Thank you for joining us here at Tongue and Geek, and remember, don't throw your baby in the trash. Not even a baby graboid, which is, again, just a big fucking worm.
A cute worm.
It's not.